Emma had never imagined her life would change so quickly. Just 6 months ago, she was living in a small apartment in Portland with her mother. Now, she was in a big, quiet house in upstate New York, living with people who still felt like strangers. After her mother married Richard, Emma agreed to move in for a fresh start. Richard was kind, wealthy, and respectful, and his home was beautiful, the kind you see in magazines. But it didn't feel like home. Not yet. What made things more complicated was Liam, Richard's son from his first marriage. Emma had only met him twice before the move. He was older too, 24 to her 22, and unlike anyone she had ever known. Tall, quiet, always dressed in black or gray, Liam moved through the house like a shadow. He worked from home as a photographer, spending most of his time in the attic-turned-studio. They rarely spoke beyond polite greetings. Morning, hey, good night. That was it. But Emma noticed things. The way Liam never looked her directly in the eye. The way he always wore his headphones, even when no music played. The way he disappeared upstairs after dinner without a word. She didn't mind the quiet. In fact, sometimes she preferred it. She was still adjusting to this new life. Her friends were back on the West Coast. Her routines were gone. And this new house with its white walls and spotless floors felt too perfect to relax in. Still, she was curious. Not in a romantic way. At least, not at first. More in the way you're drawn to someone who's clearly holding something back. Liam had a presence. He wasn't unfriendly, just distant. And somehow that distance made him more noticeable. Then came the moment everything changed. It was a gray Thursday afternoon. Emma had gone out for a walk but came back early when the clouds started to roll in. She entered the house quietly, soaked from a light drizzle. The house was unusually silent. No music, no voices. Not even the hum of the TV downstairs. As she climbed the stairs, heading toward her room, she noticed the attic door slightly open. She had never been up there. It was Liam's space, and she respected that. But something about the stillness made her pause. Voices drifted from the room, not loud, just soft enough to stop her steps. She thought he was on the phone. But then she realized he was talking to himself, through the crack in the door. She saw Liam sitting by the large attic window, photos spread out around him. He was holding a letter in his hand, reading it aloud. His voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something deeper. Emma froze. She knew she shouldn't be listening. It felt too personal. But she couldn't move. Liam's voice was softer than she expected. "You said letting go would get easier," he said, reading the letter. "But I still see you in every photo I take." She didn't understand the full meaning, but she could feel the weight of it. There was loss in his voice. Maybe grief. Maybe heartbreak. She didn't know. Then the floor creaked beneath her foot. Liam looked up. His eyes met hers through the doorway. I'm sorry," Emma said quickly, stepping back. "I wasn't trying to spy." Liam blinked, surprised, then set the letter down. "It's okay," he said after a moment. "You just startled me." She hesitated, then stepped inside the attic for the first time. The room was warm and full of light, with large windows and framed photographs on every wall. Some were landscapes. Some were portraits. All of them had emotion in them, not the posed kind, but the raw, real kind. Emma looked around slowly. "This is beautiful," she said, and she meant it. Liam gave a small, shy smile. "Thanks. It's the only place that feels like mine." She nodded, understanding more than she expected to. "Sometimes I feel like a guest in my own life lately." He looked at her then, really looked, and something shifted. The silence between them wasn't cold anymore. It was full of something unsaid. They sat down across from each other on the floor, surrounded by photos and soft light. He told her, slowly, about the letter. About a friend he lost 3 years ago. Someone who had meant more to him than he ever admitted while they were alive. "It changed how I see things," said. "How I photograph people. How I talk to them or don't." Emma listened quietly, without interrupting. It wasn't a story full of drama or big moments. It was quiet and sad and real. "I didn't expect to tell you that." Liam said finally. "I didn't expect to hear it," she replied. "But I'm glad I did." He smiled again, a little more at ease. "Me too." And in that attic, something unspoken began. Not love, not yet, but something. The kind of connection that starts in silence and grows slowly, like the first light of morning coming through a window. Soft and unexpected. Emma didn't know what it was, but she knew one thing for sure. Liam wasn't just her stepbrother. He was someone she was starting to see, really see for the first time. And from that moment on, nothing would be the same. After that day in the attic, something between Emma and Liam quietly changed. They still didn't speak often, but when they did, it felt different, more real, less guarded. Their conversations were still brief, but now they looked each other in the eye. There was something in Liam's gaze that Emma hadn't seen before. Softness, even curiosity. Emma started noticing more about him. How he stayed up late editing photos with soft music playing in the background. How he sometimes stood on the balcony before dawn, sipping coffee in silence. How his room always smelled faintly of cedar and camera film. It was strange how much someone could say without speaking. One evening, Richard and Emma's mother went out to a dinner party, leaving the house unusually quiet. Emma curled up on the couch with a book, but her mind wandered. She wondered if Liam was upstairs, in the attic again, surrounded by his photos and quiet thoughts. She felt a pull, not the kind she could explain, but the kind that made her want to see him. Without overthinking, she climbed the stairs and knocked gently on the attic door. Liam opened it, surprised but not unkind. "Hey," he said, stepping aside. "You can come in if you want." The room was dimly lit, soft jazz playing in the background. Photos covered the walls and several were scattered across the floor and desk. Emma stepped inside and looked around. "You've been busy." Liam nodded. "I'm working on a new project." "What's it about?" He hesitated, then said people and the things they don't say out loud. Emma raised an eyebrow. "Like secrets." "More like ... emotions, moments. The things we feel but don't know how to explain." She walked closer, looking at a black and white photo of an elderly woman sitting alone on a bench, staring at the sea. The sadness in her eyes was undeniable. "This one feels lonely," Emma said. Liam looked at the photo too. "She lost her husband." "I took that in Nova Scotia 2 years ago." Emma turned toward him. "You don't talk much about your travels?" "I used to go everywhere. Before Dad remarried. Before everything felt ... complicated." Emma didn't push. She understood that some walls weren't meant to be broken down all at once. He changed the subject. "Want to see something?" He walked over to his computer and pulled up a folder. "These are the pictures I took of you last week when we were in the garden." Emma had almost forgotten. He had casually mentioned wanting to take a few test shots for lighting, and she had agreed without thinking much of it. Now, seeing the photos on screen, she was stunned. They weren't just pictures. They were moments. One showed her laughing mid-sentence. Another captured the way the sunlight hit her hair. One in particular made her pause. It was a close-up of her looking away, lost in thought. She barely recognized herself. She looked ... vulnerable and beautiful. "I didn't know I looked like that," she said quietly. Liam leaned against the table. "You don't usually let people see you like that." Emma looked at him. "And you do." He gave a small smile. "Only through a lens." A pause stretched between them, gentle but full. Emma felt her heart beat a little faster, but she didn't move. She didn't want to break the moment. Then Liam spoke again. "You know, I wasn't sure about this whole living together situation." Emma nodded. "Me neither. But now," he said, his voice softer, "I'm starting to think it wasn't a bad thing." She felt warmth spread through her chest. "Me too." That night they stayed in the attic for hours, talking about everything they hadn't said before. College dreams, past relationships, fears about the future. They learned things about each other that had nothing to do with being step-siblings and everything to do with being human. Liam told her about his mother, how she left when he was 10, how he never really forgave her, how photography became the only way he could understand what people were feeling. Emma shared how hard it had been watching her mom fall in love again after losing her dad. How she always felt like she had to smile and pretend she was okay with the changes. Their stories weren't the same. But somehow, they fit together like puzzle pieces. At some point, Emma stood by the attic window looking at the stars. Liam joined her, standing just close enough that their arms almost touched. She turned her head slightly. He was already looking at her. Neither of them said anything. They didn't have to. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of understanding. When Emma finally went back to her room that night, she couldn't sleep. She replayed every word, every glance, every quiet second. She didn't know what this was between them. It wasn't love, not yet. But it wasn't just family either. It was something in between. The next morning, nothing was said about it. They returned to their routines. Liam went back to his editing. Emma made coffee and sat in the kitchen reading. But something unspoken remained, a thread connecting them, a quiet energy that hadn't been there before. And as the days passed, they kept finding excuses to spend time together, sharing music, cooking dinner, going on walks through the trees behind the house. None of it was dramatic. It was subtle, natural, easy. But every glance lingered a little longer. Every laugh meant a little more. And every silence felt like it held 1,000 words. Emma had once thought living in this house would feel like walking through someone else's life. But now, when she looked at Liam, she felt like she was finally stepping into her own. And though neither of them had said it out loud, something was changing. Something that couldn't be undone. After weeks of spending time together, Emma and Liam found themselves closer than ever before. The silence that once separated them had softened into moments filled with shared laughter, quiet talks, and a growing comfort neither had expected. One late afternoon, Liam asked Emma to help him with a new photography project. His voice was casual, but there was something in his eyes that made her curious. She agreed without hesitation, eager to spend more time with him. They set up the camera in the attic, the same room where Emma had first seen Liam's vulnerability. The golden hour sun poured through the window, casting warm light over everything. Liam directed her gently, asking her to sit by the window, then to stand in the hallway, and finally to relax on the floor surrounded by his photographs as he clicked the shutter. Emma noticed the softness in his gaze. It wasn't just a photographer capturing a subject. It was a man seeing someone he cared about with new eyes. When the session ended, they sat on the floor, breathing heavily from laughter and nerves. Emma looked at Liam, feeling a flutter she couldn't explain. "Why does it feel like something's happening between us?" she asked quietly. Liam didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached for a photo he had just taken, one of Emma looking away, lost in thought. "Maybe it already is," he said softly. For the first time, they allowed themselves to acknowledge the feelings that had been growing beneath the surface. It wasn't a reckless attraction or a sudden spark. It was slow, steady, and full of meaning. Over the next few days, their connection deepened. They shared more stories from their past, their dreams, and their fears. Liam told Emma about his struggle with feeling invisible, about how photography was his way of expressing what words couldn't. Emma opened up about her fear of losing her family again and how she longed for stability. There. Conversations were filled with honesty and tenderness. Each moment together felt like a secret they were protecting from the world. One evening, as the house grew quiet, Liam pulled Emma aside. "I don't want to lose this," he said, his voice low. "Whatever this is between us." Emma looked into his eyes and saw the same vulnerability she felt. "Neither do I," she whispered. They both knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Being step-siblings made their feelings complicated. Society might not understand, and they might face judgment. But in that moment, none of it mattered. What mattered was the connection they shared, something real and honest. That night, Emma lay awake thinking about Liam. She wasn't sure where their story would lead. But for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. Because sometimes, the heart crosses lines we never expected. And that's where the most beautiful stories begin. As autumn deepened, the air outside grew cooler. But inside the house, something warmer began to grow between Emma and Liam. Their connection, which had slowly built over months, was no longer just a quiet understanding. It had blossomed into something neither of them could ignore. Every day, they found more reasons to be near each other. Whether it was sharing a meal, sitting together in the living room, or quietly reading side by side, the small moments now held a deeper meaning. Their conversations were longer, softer, and more honest. They talked about their hopes and fears, dreams of the future, and the challenges they faced living under the same roof with this new, complicated family. One evening, after a simple dinner, Emma found Liam in the attic, editing photos by the window. The golden light framed his face, and for a moment, she just watched him in silence. He looked up and smiled gently when he noticed her standing there. "I'm glad you're here," Achaia said quietly. Emma stepped inside and sat beside him. They looked through the photos together, pictures of quiet streets, falling leaves, moments frozen in time. But when Liam paused on a photo of Emma, his expression softened even more. "You've changed everything," he said honestly. Emma's heart skipped. "Me, yes. You made this house feel like home. Made me want to open up. Made me feel less alone." She smiled, feeling the weight of his words settle between them. Then, with a calmness that surprised her, Emma said, "Liam, there's something I need to tell you." He looked at her, eyes steady and patient. "I think I've fallen in love with you." The words floated in the air, gentle but powerful. For a moment, Liam didn't say anything. Then, with a soft sigh, he reached out and took her hand. "I think I've been falling for you since the day you caught me in this attic," he admitted. Neither of them rushed to define what this meant or what would come next. They knew the challenges, the judgment from others, the uncertainty of their new family dynamic, the fear of stepping into uncharted territory. But in that moment, none of it mattered. They simply sat together, hand in hand, letting the quiet warmth of their feelings fill the room. The days that followed were filled with a new kind of closeness. They were careful with each other, respecting the boundaries their situation demanded. But the way they looked at one another, the small touches, the shared smiles, it all spoke volumes. They didn't need words to understand that this was real. Emma and Liam weren't just step-siblings who lived in the same house anymore. They were two people who had found a rare connection, one built on trust, respect, and deep affection. Though the path ahead was uncertain, they were ready to face it together because sometimes the heart speaks first, even when the world isn't ready, and sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places, like the quiet attic of a big empty house.